Welcome to Impact on a Tuesday morning. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the studio Stephen Bryant. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Russell.
Conditions are a little different this time.
They sure are. I was thinking about that this morning, the last time we got together.
Yeah, so the last time Stephen was in the chair was May 3rd of 2016, the day of the fire, and it was hot. It was 28, 29 degrees, beautiful day. We had a great chat that day.
We did. In fact, we were talking about how great a day it was and that it seemed like the fire had gone out of the area and things were good.
Yeah. It's interesting. May 3rd, when we say that, it means so much.
It does.
If anybody's listening to this from away, well, May 3rd, what's that mean? But for us, it's kind of like our 9/11. Speaking of which, it is 9/11 today, isn't it?
It is.
Wow. Have you ever seen the 9/11 memorial in New York?
No, I haven't, but I've had some friends that have seen it and said it's very powerful.
Yeah, it was so, yeah. We ended up in that part of the world of New York when we were last there, kind of an unplanned thing. And when we walked up to the memorial, which is this hole that looks like infinity, yeah, it's incredibly moving.
Yeah. I've seen pictures of it, and I thought I'd love to get there sometime and just take that in.
Yeah, it's one of the bucket list things for sure. Well, thanks for coming in. Stephen does a lot of things in this community. He's a former executive director of the Center of Hope. He currently works for Waypoints with the team there. And but he's ever since our conversation 2 years ago, you've done some more things, and that's kind of what we want to talk about today.
Yeah. So after the fire, of course, we came back, and things were different in the community. In fact, before the interview on May 3rd, I just finished my certification with the John Maxwell team to be a certified coach, trainer, and speaker with John Maxwell and his team.
Let's stop there because there are people listening that will not know who John Maxwell is. Who is John Maxwell?
So John Maxwell is a former pastor. He is an author of countless number of books that have been on the New York Times bestseller list. It's a lot about leadership coaching, living, growth. So John has got a team that is in 163 countries throughout the world teaching leadership principles, even to some government officials that have seen what John Maxwell and his team have done of actually governments from different countries throughout the world that are struggling with leadership principles and how do we become good leaders in government. And they have invited his team to come to these different places throughout the world.
You obviously skipped out on the American government. Sorry, I had to say. On the day that Bob Woodward's book comes out. That's fantastic. Of course, I've listened to John Maxwell. Actually, it was an interview he did with I don't know if he's the editor-in-chief or the publisher of Success Magazine. And John tells some amazing stories of his years as a pastor.
Yes, and when I was in Orlando, and that was in March of 2016, one of the things I really appreciate about John is that you come to the certification event, there's a lot of hoopla and, charging the audience, say, this is John Maxwell, he's just been named the #1 leadership author in the world, and all these accolades, and John kind of saunters on stage and he says, my name's John Maxwell, and I want to be your friend. And John talks about the importance of connection, integrity, friendship, those types of things that and he talks about elevating your game, so to speak, as far as who you are, personal growth. And how I got involved with that was I was looking at doing some coaching, and some good friends down in Cochrane, John and Colette Close, and John's actually worked up here with Leadership with Buffalo and teaching Leadership Gold. And I said, here's what I'm interested in. He said, Steve, he said, go with John Maxwell. And a decision that I have not regretted one single bit.
So what did that encompass? Was it online courses, a conference? Like what did that encompass?
So it's a number of things, Russell. One is you have to go to a certification event, which is about 3 or 4 days. You go through a lot of course work, you go through a lot of speaking, you go through a lot of coaching, and you deal with your particular team. So we refer to our team there back in March as T3O, because we were table 30, so we're T3Os. And so we kept in contact with many of those people since. So you go through that. And I'm also on what he calls John Maxwell Online University. So it's courses, it's coaching calls. So I twice, 3 times a week, I can dial in at a certain time and get a coaching call for half an hour, ask questions. I also have an opportunity I'm working on right now is the 15 Invaluable Laws of Growth. So I'm working on a mastermind. I'm putting that together because one of the things I feel in the nonprofits is as leaders, we always need to be growing. And we always need to be learning, because I remember back in my seminary days is one of our teachers says, the day you stop learning is the day you stop teaching. So it's one of those things that for me, and I feel right now, somebody says, it seems like, Stephen, you're just turned 60, you're just hitting your stride right now. So that's exciting. And again, the transition to Waypoints was because of this. I wanted that time that I wasn't getting being executive director with the Center of Hope to be able to put this time into learning.
Stephen, you said you were working on your mastermind,
yes.
And that's a term that was used in the conference call we recently had with some folks around the Shining Mickey Awards, which we're going to talk about later. But what do you mean by working on my mastermind?
So a mastermind is getting people together that are interested in the topic that you're going to teach. We'll get into the Shining Mickey Awards in the mastermind there because it's based on the mastermind or the mind of Walt Disney. Oh. And he would do these creative workshops and what they call masterminds with his organization. And he says, think about wild and crazy ideas that we can do. Yeah. And they would get together and talk about what we could do to make Disney or Disneyland better. What are some of the innovative processes and they would come up with some crazy things. And then the next thing he would do is come in and shoot it down. Not to discourage, but he says, he looked at it and says, what could possibly go wrong in this? Or what about this? And what about that? So then they would get back together and talk about that. Says, okay, yeah, Walt's right about this. And let's look at that and maybe tweak it a little bit. So these are some of the things that I'm really excited about as we get into that, because Jeff, that wrote The Mind of Walt, is going to be talking about in this mastermind, the mind of Disney.
Somewhere on this journey, you connected with a gentleman named Michael Brooks. Michael Brooks is the founder of something called Coach on Fire. You call it a radio program, but it's internet radio.
It is.
So it's a series of interviews from various people. Who is Michael Brooks beyond the fact that he is the guy behind Coach on Fire? And how has that connection deepened for you?
Wow, that's an amazing story how that happened. So Michael Brooks is an attorney. He's worked with nonprofit boards. He also worked with the Reagan administration when Reagan was president. So he worked with that. So we got into a lot of the deeper workings of the Reagan administration and in their massive tax cuts and so on and so forth. So when Michael, I guess, retired, he started this program called Coach on Fire. So how I got involved with that was, again, to stress your media presence. And this person called up that was on Coach on Fire. Her name was Sarah Shakespeare. And Sarah said, Steve, she said, I just wanted to see if you might be interested in an interview on my program, Create a Life You Love, with Sarah Shakespeare. And I said, sure. So she called me up. We did about a half-hour interview, just the two of us. And she said, I'd love to have you on my show. So we did about an hour show. And because she was talking about a quote back from C.S. Lewis that I had mentioned, you're never too old to set a new goal or to dream a new dream. And she says, what does it mean for you? And at that time, I was just turning 60. And mentioned that I'm really hitting my stride. I'm enjoying what I'm doing and having an impact on people. Well, Michael Brooks heard the interview. And so a couple days later, he calls me up and said, Steve, he said, I've got a slot on Coach on Fire. Are you interested? I said, you betcha. and so it started.
Wow. How many interviews have you done so far?
I've probably done a dozen interviews. And last week, I was interviewing Frank Shankwitz. Now, if you don't know who Frank Shankwitz is, he is the creator, founder of the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And so what Make-A-Wish does is it grants wishes to young people, children, who have this bucket list or this one wish they want to have, but they are dying, either of cancer or cystic fibrosis. I went to an event in Los Angeles where the organization that I'm working with does that. They were partners with Make-A-Wish Foundation, and this young gentleman, probably 12 years old, was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. He wanted to go to Hawaii. So not only did they give him the wish of going to Hawaii, they also said, bring a friend along, bring your family along, and we will get you a customized surfboard signed by, and I can't remember who the guy's name was, but a famous surfer in Hawaii. And he met with him as well. And so this is what Make-A-Wish does. And Frank tells the story of the first, his name, if I remember right, was Chris. And he wanted to be a state trooper. And Frank at that time was a motorcycle cop. And at that time, and as we were talking about, he says, Steve, that dates you, because it was a show called Chips.
I remember it.
Yeah, see? Sure. So back in the 70s. And he wanted to be a motorcycle policeman. So they arranged for him to get off the IVs for this special occasion where they bring him to Arizona. He meets with Frank. They've got a uniform for him. They've got the wings, so to speak, because it's a motorcycle. They got the hat for him. They showed him the bike. He was sitting on the bike. And he wanted to be an honorary motorcycle policeman. Yeah. And so they granted that to him. A couple of days later, they found out that he passed away, and he was going to be buried in Illinois. And so Frank drove up for the funeral, and once they hit the Illinois state line, he said they had a motorcycle, I believe, or a police escort that took him to the funeral, and he was buried. He said on the tombstone, honorary police officer.
Wow. Very, very cool. And people, if they want to listen to that interview, is there a way for them to do that?
Yeah, so I'm on iHeartRadio, I'm on Spotify and Apple Tunes, and it's High Performance Leadership with Stephen Bryant.
Awesome. Spotify. Awesome.
Yeah.
I can listen to that out in the studio. My guest today, Stephen Bryant, who professionally during the day works with Waypoints. In his private time, he's doing all kinds of exciting things, including collaborating with Michael Brooks, who we've been speaking about, the founder of Coach on Fire Radio, for an event in the new year, called the Shining Mickey Awards. We're going to find out what those are all about when we come back with more. This is Impact right here on 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back. We're live at the 91.1 studios here on King Street in the renewed Composite High School. Man, it's looking good out there. The landscaping is almost done. We've got what looks to be a brand new facility. Really the original high school here in Fort McMurray, at least one of them. My guest this morning is Stephen Bryant. Stephen is very involved with his John Maxwell certified training, helping people, doing public speaking. Through that work, he connected with a gentleman named Michael Brooks, and Michael Brooks is based in LA, somewhere down
San
there.
Diego.
Somewhere hot.
Yeah.
As opposed
someplace
to cold.
I'd like to be right now.
Michael is the founder of Coach on Fire Radio, which led Stephen to host his own show, which is awesome. And that connection somehow turned into the Shining Mickey Awards, which are coming up in 2019. Tell us, what are the Shining Mickey Awards, and where did this come from?
So as part of this collaboration with Michael and being on the Coach on Fire, Michael had asked me about this project. And he said, Steve, you've had a lot of experience with nonprofits and being a pastor and being involved with that. He said, I'd like to give you an idea, maybe see what you think about it. And he said, what I want to do is to honor small to medium nonprofits in North America, so United States and Canada, and for their creativity and innovation, because a lot of them don't get a lot of credit. Now, he was talking about large organizations like St. Jude's that get a lot of money, and they can just call on somebody at a drop of a hat and bring in, a celebrity to promote them. But he says one of the things that he says, I think a lot of nonprofits, especially small ones, struggle with is trying to raise funds, to be innovative in a culture that sometimes people bypass because they're not big. And they're doing a great job. And he says, I want to try to do something like that. So Michael came up with this idea of creating the Shining Mickey Awards, because it goes back to creativity and innovation that Walt certainly had down to a science. So he asked me about it, and I said, I'd love to do that. And it has become bigger and more colossal, if I could put it that way, than I could ever imagined, because it was originally just a couple of people, and we were going to bring some judges. I asked you because I knew I had a great respect for you, Russell, and know that you're very creative and innovative. And I thought, yeah, I'd like to bring Russell in on this. So I have another connection, again, through social media. Somebody picked up on the fact that I was involved with John Maxwell, and her name is Rydell Mackey. And Rydell has this amazing ability to connect with some high-profile people. So all of a sudden it says, I can get you Frank Shankwitz. I can give you Kevin Harrington, who I'll be interviewing on Friday.
Oh, cool. From
Shark Tank.
Shark Tank, yeah.
And Greg Reed, who's actually on the foundation with Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. And Greg is just a high ball of energy. Dave Farrow, who has a media consulting agency, who also holds the Guinness Book of World Record for memory. We have
football player Marshall
Faulk, who's a Hall of Fame NFL football player, who's on. Melody Garcia, who is a author. She's also a very sought after speaker. She arrived in the Philippines back in the 70s, and is involved with getting Filipino girls out of the sex slave trade. And she's spoken at the UN. She's spoken in Washington, D.C. Great lady. We've struck up a great friendship, and very sharp. Russell, you're involved, and looking forward to having you there as well. So we've got a very high-profile judging panel, along with Jeff, who has written the Mind of Walt, who also teaches at UCLA, the only course in the world that deals specifically with Disney and the mindset of Disney. So again, this is something that we're working on. It's going to be in February 2019. And looking forward to.
When you describe it as being colossal, I got that sense after our very first conference call, because of the people that you named were on the phone call. I was thinking, what am I doing here?
Well, I thought the same thing too.
And all of a sudden, we're talking about the awards ceremony happening is it not Pasadena? Is it Pasadena? No.
Anaheim.
Anaheim, where Disney is. I had to go Google where is Disneyland, because I wasn't sure if it was Florida or California. Anyway, when you say colossal, we're going to have nonprofits submitting applications,
yes.
I presume, from across the United States and Canada, all focused on innovation and imagination and creativity. And if they happen to win or be, I don't know how it's going to work in terms of the hierarchy, but they will actually be brought or going to LA for this. Tell me about that. And what is the direct connection with Disney?
So there's no real, because we have to be careful when we talk about Disney, that Disney we have to put a disclaimer that the actual Disney organization, in fact, in Jeff's book, there's a page and a half disclaimer by Disney on the book, but at the end of it says, enjoy the book because it's great, that type of thing. So we have to be really careful about the Disney organization and the integrity of it. But they've given us the go ahead to use this, and what the award is really is a stature of Walt Disney holding the hand of Mickey Mouse,
Wow.
which is what you see when you first enter into the gates of Disneyland.
Yeah.
There's this great big statue. So it's going to be like it's going to be like the Oscars. Well, we're we're working on having it like an Oscar type night presentation. We're also going to be doing the mastermind. So what we want to do, because somebody had mentioned, like, it's great to win this award, but what's the statue going to do for me and my organization?
Yeah.
It's just a recognition. But so we're working on that, and we're working on doing a video presentation and having all these speakers like Kevin and Frank and Greg do a video with them and tell the audience, so they can use this video when they go back. They're making presentations and saying, here's what we've done. And here are the people who are supporting us. Here are the people who judged us. And here are the people that are really kind of promoting us.
You're a busy guy. What is the driver? This is a lot of extra time that you're investing in this. What's the driver for you personally? And what you hope to see the Shining Mickey Awards do for small and medium-sized nonprofits?
So what drives me, and it's been my drive ever since I came to Canada, really. I was involved with retail management, the supermarket industry, and this nagging thing, we were talking about something that comes in within us, I guess, if you could put it that way, is this desire to help people. I want people to succeed. I want to feel that I'm a catalyst to help bring change to a person's life. So I came to Canada, studied to be a pastor. I was a pastor for 20 years. I was a chaplain for the St. John's Maple Leafs when they were in St. John's. And then we decided there's something else. So my wife and I decided to come here to Fort McMurray, where at that time we only had 2 grandchildren, and this was where they were. And it's interesting, a very quick story. I thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to take my master's in counseling and then, just take a job just to kind of pay the bills. And ended up getting interviewed at the Center of Hope. And then about a year later, I became the executive director. And I'm thinking, this is bigger than I ever thought. But it came back to this desire of helping people. And again, with the coaching and with the John Maxwell team, again, to how can I help somebody succeed? How can I help somebody become a better leader? How can I help somebody grow? And that's been that catalyst for doing that. And as I was talking to Michael, and as we mentioned before, is a lot of times the small to medium nonprofits do a great job, but they're not recognized. And how can we do that? And how can we show a lot of nonprofits have done the same thing the same way for 30 plus years? How can we show them? How can you be innovative? How can you be creative? Use your imagination, because I think a lot of times we get caught up in things like, well, that's maybe not such a great idea, but we haven't had the opportunity to share that idea with others. And that's what I want to do is, help bring these nonprofits to the next level.
Yeah. Inspire them, really.
Inspire. Yeah, that's a great word. Yeah, inspire them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Stephen Bryant is my guest. He is working on a project called the Shining Mickey Awards, which are going to be handed out in 2019 down in Anaheim, California. They're for small and medium-sized nonprofits and achievements in creativity and imagination. And that is for nonprofits here in Canada and in the USA as well. We're going to find out how people can find out more about the Shining Mickey Awards when we come back. You're listening to Impact. It is a team effort of United Way, Fuse Social, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray, YMM Magazine, and 91.1 The Bridge. Welcome back to Impact. By the way, this show is videoed by the Honorable Matt Lawrence every day, thanks to Shaw TV Fort McMurray, and I point that out because it's a valuable resource that they host on their YouTube channel. So if you ever want to look at some back issues, I kind of like watching it. I actually go back and watch every show, and it's a real valuable way to learn about the community and really extract some of the lessons that we learn talking to amazing people like Stephen Bryant on this radio program. So check that out. It's Shaw TV Fort McMurray on YouTube. Michael is back, first time since May 3rd of 2016. Much cooler today. We didn't have any end of summer. We kind of just went from summer to almost winter.
I don't know.
Do you have any explanation?
I have no explanation. I'm still trying to figure that one out.
My wife was asking me yesterday, do you think it's going to get warm even a little before winter? I said, I just don't know. Well, I'm so glad you came in today to talk about the things that you're doing with your incredible growth with the John Maxwell program post-fire and now working on a significant, you said, colossal project called the Shining Mickey Awards. And thanks for inviting me along to be a judge with you on that. So a nonprofit, a charity is listening to this right now. And they feel, you know what, we've been really crazy innovative. Some of the things that Waypoints have done have been off the charts, just as an example. And they are interested in applying. And wouldn't it be great to have some amazing nonprofits and charities in our region apply?
I would love to have that.
How do they do it?
So the website is www.shiningmickeyawards.vip.
Oh, that's different.
Yeah. Michael gave that to me. I thought, wow, it is different.
Repeat that again.
Okay.
Without the WW.
Yeah, it's shiningmickeyawards.vip.
Wow. And is it a complex application process, or is it not too bad? Because that's the first question.
That is one of the things I have to go back and look at for a second. Okay, because it is complex.
As a former executive director, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I do indeed. So there is the. And just let me get back to where I was.
He's flipping some pages. You can't see that on the radio, but. So there's certain things that you're going to need to provide if you want to apply for this, and
they'll be asking some questions. It is so one of the things in preparing your nomination, you'll write compelling stories of achievement and leadership, utilizing imagination, creativity, and innovation with your organization that you can use in other ways. And again, it's only small and medium-sized nonprofits, so it's up to 100 employees within the organization. So we consider that a small organization. You know, when we talk about, I think we've got close to 60 at Waypoints, and we think that that's big. But you know, when you look at the whole scope of organizations, we're still considered small. Large in this town. So the other thing too is so when you send this entry fee in, there'll be some questions that you have to answer. A little bit about your organization, what you've been doing, and so that will go in. We'll take a look at those applications and look through them, and that's part of what you'll be doing too, Russell, is looking through these applications, and then we will narrow it down to. I'm trying to think of. I don't think we've really come on a specific number, but it will be, and then we'll judge those. And if there are any ties, then Michael and I will be the tiebreakers.
In a way, it's intriguing because it sounds like it's more story-based. What is the story of how you've taken your nonprofit or charity and done some extraordinary things?
It's interesting you said that too, Russell, because Michael talks about everything with Disney is about a story. And as he was saying, everything in Disneyland, the rides, the exhibits, everything is based on a story. And he said Walt was one of the greatest storytellers. And that's why we worked it that way.
Well, good luck with it, Stephen. We're out of time for this show, but again, the website, if you're listening, you're from a nonprofit or charity that's doing some really cool, imaginative, creative things, is shiningmickeyawards.vip. shiningmickeyawards.vip. The awards ceremony coming up in 2019 down in Anaheim, California.
Absolutely.
Is that where Disneyland actually is?
It is.
Anaheim?
In Anaheim.
I've never been.
I've been to the one in Orlando.
Yeah.
Just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking forward to that trip.
Well, thanks again, Stephen, for coming in, and best of luck with that. Stephen Bryant is a host on Coach on Fire. Again, the name of your particular show, Stephen?
High Performance Leadership with Stephen Bryant.
You can catch it on Spotify. You said
iHeartRadio. And Apple Tunes.
Fantastic. You've been listening to Impact, a team effort of United Way, right in the first week of their community campaign. Fuse Social, a big partner, as well as YMM Magazine, Shaw TV, Fort McMurray. Thanks, Matt, for capturing my thin side. The other side's way out of control. And thanks to Steph behind the board here at 91.1 The Bridge.